here we go. We're recording a video talking about both of the Sonic movies. I just watched Sonic the Hedgehog and Sonic 2 Sonic Knuckles, that one, today, just earlier this morning. I don't want to get too exaggerated. I don't want to get too dramatic in my discussion on these movies because the discourse here, I was kind of shocked at some of the stuff that I saw happening as part of that discussion, flat out internet argument stuff. It's just people seem to get really, really mad at any suggestion that these movies are anything other than excellent and extremely faithful to the source material and meaningful to fans and just plain fun movies. And first up, yes, people are allowed to disagree. It's fine. It doesn't mean that they're coming after you or your personal identity that's tied to media properties that you really enjoy. Like, it's okay. And at the same time, I think it's extremely important to discuss things you don't like in a way that doesn't feel threatening to other people, in a way that acknowledges the subjectivity of discussions and understandings of media. That's really why I want to try to be very calm here, mentioning some things that I thought about while watching these two movies. That's all. Sonic 1 and 2. I'm still kind of shocked at the divide that I'm seeing between video game people and the Sonic fan base, their reaction to the movie, and movie people, let's say, professional movie critics. And this is one instance where just looking at the Rotten Tomatoes score is actually very helpful. So obviously, Rotten Tomatoes is not any kind of definitive, scorecard for a movie. It's all incredibly subjective, but it does give a general idea of how certain groups of people felt about a movie. It's one of those movies where we have a very clear divide between critic score, audience score. Audiences love this movie. A lot of people have really enjoyed it. And then on the critic side of things, professional critics think it's pretty darn mediocre. Like if we put this into a scorecard, D+ or F. Really middle of the road. And even when we look at the box office numbers for both of these movies, it would appear that they both made a decent amount of money. Estimated budgets are around like 85 and like 100 respectively, I think. And if you're not familiar, typically a big studio movie will have an equal budget just for marketing. So if you want to say, want to get an idea of how much money a movie made, box office returns minus production budget minus marketing budget. So I think they're in the black here. I think they made money on both movies. The second one seems to have been more successful, but even there, it's not a blockbuster. Maybe I need to go back to some videos where people are talking about their love for this movie. The sequel in particular, I think, is just massively popular. Or please feel free to try to tell me in the comments, I guess, like, what is it? Like, which aspect? Is it the way that the characters are realized? Is it the fact that you just get to see tens of millions of Hollywood dollars put into, like, rendering characters that you've loved for a really long time? Are you really happy with the representation of Sonic, Tails, Knuckles, Jim Carrey's portrayal of Dr. Eggman? Maybe that's what's really doing it for people. But beyond that, those are the handful of elements of the movie that I can kind of understand where, like, I think the Sonic fan base technically qualifies as victims of abuse at this point. I don't want to ruin anyone's good time, but please tell me, because outside of our lead characters, oh my God, what a wasteland, a void of like creativity, artistry, excitement, entertainment, interest, effort even. I'm not saying that the people working on these movies weren't trying. They're professionals. This is what they do. This is how they make their living. Competency in the filmmaking all around. However, sometimes you can kind of tell when you're watching a movie that maybe everyone wasn't super on board. If you're working on Sonic 2 and you've been asked to shoot at the, let's say, I don't know, Four Seasons Oahu Resort, which looks lovely, and you can go ahead and find your best possible rates on the official website today. Maybe you're just like, whatever, I'm going to Hawaii for a little bit, that'll be nice, I will do my job. I don't get the sense that everybody was incredibly enthused and like constantly throwing out incredible ideas. Like, I don't feel any of that. Obviously, that is just complete speculation. That's just the vibe I get. And for anybody who's watched a lot of online movie reviews and things like that for years now, specifically if you're familiar with good old Red Letter Media, you'll know what I mean when I say Sonic 2 is an Adam Sandler movie. I'm not saying it is like an Adam Sandler movie. I am saying it is one. In other words, they, had the cheapest budget that they could get away with. They look to get tax breaks and cuts of all kinds from anywhere they could. Where they shot was based on where they could get the best tax breaks. They took a decent number of product placement agreements with giant brands, perhaps Four Seasons, perhaps Chevrolet, and they just did their jobs. They did their jobs. Even the cast wasn't super enthused. They're just there. They're getting a paycheck or two leads. Who are they? What are the actors' names? I don't know. They're fine. They're doing a job. I need to regroup already. I'm struggling with this. That was the overwhelming feeling I got. I could try to speak about so many different aspects. I could talk about just the CG animation. I could talk about lighting. I could talk about composition. I could talk about all these individual things, story points, structure, etc. I think it saves time for both of us if I just say it was the bare minimum, a formula of some kind that they have just filled in the blanks. This doesn't feel like it necessarily had to be a Sonic movie. It could have had all human characters. It could have been in an entirely animated world with brand new original characters we've never heard of before. It could have been yet another Smurfs movie. Like, there is nothing about this that feels Sonic other than the fill in the blanks that happen to utilize Sonic properties that they licensed out. It's not just generic villain, it's Dr. Eggman, played like a generic villain by Jim Carrey. It's not Bobo the Bouncy Boy as our lead protagonist who's great for merchandising. No, it just happens to be Sonic, and he does the things that the protagonist does in a movie like this. Themes? Oh my god, themes. Themes is this it's the part of the formula where they filled in too many things for that one blank. There was one blank on the page and they were like, what if we just have a bunch of extremely standard themes for like a family movie? So the three that I've counted, and by the way, if you're ever wondering what the theme of a movie is, in a terrible one like this, that's mostly aimed at kids, they will probably just say it out loud. Like, one character will have a line where they just say the theme of the movie. I don't have every quote for you, but I do have the themes themselves written down. Responsibility is number one. That's the first one we're introduced to in an incredibly boring scene where an adult actor man explains to a CG character in a boat, just in the real world, while nothing is happening, that responsibility is important because apparently this character's like a child. Make it like a buddy cop thing where they're like equals, but one's kind of crazy and the other one has to rein him in. That actually would have been kind of fun. Anyway, next theme. Maybe being weird is okay, or being weird is cool. This is something that Tails says when they're in a Russian bar where they dance to Uptown Funk. I just had the same feeling I get when I go to a karaoke bar in K-Town and someone's just bombing, but they're so like enthusiastic about their performance that you're just like, you know what, you go for it. Good for you. But you still feel embarrassed for them. That's what's in my heart right now. Okay, theme number 3 is that you have to keep trying after failing. All of these are just kind of in the mix. In the first place, I don't think any of the movie's events actually line up with any of the themes that they mention here at all. It's kind of just generic story. They beat the bad guy and it's over. I never really got a sense that like Sonic learned responsibility. By the way, this is just a stupid bit. Can I say it anyway? Okay, so Sonic can go faster than anything. He essentially slows down time to a crawl, saves the day in the beginning. Why doesn't he do that all the time, first of all, to solve every single problem? Because that is the solution to every single problem. But on top of that, what are the ethical implications of not helping out like literally everyone on the planet all the time? Even if you're just gonna like report a robbery or assault or something to the cops, you could do that so quickly. Wow, crime rates would like disappear. Meanwhile, in the time that movie man, has been telling him about responsibility in a boat, 1,000 people died because Sonic did not intervene. So I didn't really feel the responsibility angle. Weird is cool, or like weird is okay, be yourself. Not really there at all. I guess Tails is supposed to be an analog for like, you know, a nerd, an outsider, someone who's not accepted by mainstream society, whatever. But then in one scene, Tails realizes his like self-worth and the value of his individuality, and then it's over. Like, we don't see that theme explored or expressed after that point in the movie, which is pretty early on too. And like failing and trying again, like I guess characters do that. Like, Sonic is bad at some things, but he keeps doing things because there's more movie to go. But at the same time, I never feel like he's downtrodden or he's lost his confidence or anything. Like, that's, the character just is confident to a fault. That's the whole point of the responsibility theme, I think, is that he's like reckless. But you know what? More than anything else, I'm just so bored by these movies. They're so boring. And I think a huge part of that is the choice of setting. The real world thing to begin with. Why? I would say maybe it was cheaper to shoot a live action movie with a couple of CG characters as opposed to doing a full CG movie. But like, no, in this budgetary range, we have plenty of other stuff that pulls off great looks, 100% animated, 100% CG. Even the illumination stuff tends to look decent. And they make that stuff for what, like 60, 70 million? Hotel Transylvania, how much did that cost? That looked fine. Even Hotel Transylvania 4. I don't understand that choice. And on top of that, it's not like they even tried to do like a fun version of Our World, where things are a little bit creative and different. It is just that. It's just the same. Oh, so many of the sets, no disrespect to set designers and prop teams and stuff, it just feels like stuff they already had. I'm sure it's not like literal backlot sets and things like that, but they feel so generic that they could be. Like, the point of a backlot set is you just have it. It's not so specific that it can only work for one movie. It looks like it can work for a bunch of different environments, and you dress it differently for different situations. It's just like a street in the first movie. There's a lengthy action sequence on just an empty highway. Just a highway, not a highway in an interesting part of the country. It's just there, and there are trees, and they're in cars. The coffee shop. They showed the coffee shop in the trailer for Sonic 2. They were like, this is good stuff. Throw that in there. The thing where Jim Carrey takes a sip of coffee, like smacking his lips together. It's so boring. It's a coffee shop. My favorite thing visually about both of the movies is the tiny, minuscule amount of time that we spend on other planets. I love how that Sonic world looks at the start of the very first movie. I love even how the mushroom world looks at the start of the second movie. Like, you clearly have skilled people who can make just even a simple, stupid idea look great and look really modern and professional. Why can't we stay there? I'm sorry, it really does come down to that basic idea of, oh, this is going to be a live action animation hybrid thing. I just don't understand. They've spent hundreds of millions of dollars. What? I did not enjoy these movies. I don't actively hate them at all. Honestly, I just am forgetting them very rapidly. At one point during the second movie, I was just so bored that I hopped on the iPad to make a little Sonic animation. Here it is. What do you think? Maybe my opinion will change. There's always room for that. And in fact, maybe this is a good way to tie it off. Back when the Lego Movie came out in theaters, and it was like a massive hype train unexpectedly all of a sudden, and even just a bunch of adults were really into the movie, I remember seeing a great Reddit post that summarized how a lot of people felt about that movie. And they basically said the worst part of the movie is when it hits the credits, because that's when you remember that, like, you're not 8 years old and you're an adult with responsibilities, because the movie filled them with that kind of joy. I feel like the Sonic movies are the exact opposite for me. The best part of these movies is when it hits the credits, because that's when I remember that I'm not a kid who doesn't have any taste, who just gets shuffled around to the next big movie because that's what the other kids at school are talking about, and I just have to sit there and take it. I've developed my own preferences over time, and I can say confidently that I never want to watch these movies again. Should I just stop it there? Yeah, let's do that. Thanks for stopping by.